Hey, so hi, I am recovering from hysterectomy and super glad that it's over, super glad that I did it. I'm just entering my second week post-op and I want to make two videos. I have two videos in mind that I want to make, and one of them is kind of from my perspective, like how it went, and the other one will be kind of what I learned from the doctors. So from my perspective, the week before my surgery, I took a road trip for work. And it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I got home Wednesday night. And it was grueling, folks. It was absolutely grueling. Had a lot of pain and a lot of just was pretty much sick the whole time. And but it kept my mind off of the upcoming surgery. So got home Wednesday night, worked like really hard on Thursday to try to get everything in order, and then Friday morning, the 19th of October, went in to have surgery. Got to the hospital as requested 2 hours before surgery at 7:30. My doctor was actually there at maybe 8 o'clock, which I was not expecting at all. Came in and was like raring to go, and by 8:30 everybody who needed to be there was there, and I was having my surgery an hour early, which never happens. As you know, if anyone's ever had any kind of procedure, you know that never happens. It's usually late rather than early. So it was really early, and it gave no time at all to sit and stew about it and worry about it. It just kind of happened. So sitting in there with my mom and Scott, and all of a sudden they were like, let's just do this right now. It's 8:30. I know we weren't going to go till 9:30, but everybody's ready, so let's go. So we went, and when I met with the anesthesiologist, he said, you know, that he was expecting it to be about 2 hours. And so I thought, okay, you know, sounds good. I knew that they didn't really know what to expect going in, so I knew, you know, give or take a little bit. Well, I went into surgery at 8:30, and I woke up, and the first thing I saw on the wall was the clock, and it was 3 o'clock. And the recovery nurse that was with me, I turned to her and I said, "Is it 3 o'clock?" And she said, "Yeah, it's 3 o'clock." And from my perspective, I'm you know, coming out of anesthesia and counting down the hours, and I'm going, we started at 8:30 and it's 3 o'clock. Well, in the kind of post anesthesia haze, my surgeon popped by, and she's something else. She's super hyper. She's super energetic, and she popped by the end of my bed, and she was like, "Hey, everything went really well. You know, we thought it was going to take 2 hours. It took almost 6 hours, but you know, it went really well. And everything's good, and we cut your bladder, but we stitched it up, and you're going to be fine. It's going to heal fine. You know, everything's good." And then she vanished. So 3 o'clock, I guess the surgery ended about 2:30, and I was waking up about 3 o'clock. So then I was taken up to my room, which was very close to the OR. It was just like up a floor and around a corner. And went in there and found my mom and Scott and Veda and Jean waiting for me. And before I was brought in there, I was told that I had been in the Trendelenburg position for about 2 hours. And as a result, you know, my face was puffy, and, you know, they kind of described what I looked like. And I was like, oh my gosh, don't let my family see me until I look better. You know, I don't want to worry them. And they were like, oh no, you look fine. But, you know, any puffiness that's in your face or whatever will go down, you know, within a couple hours, and you'll be fine. So I went in there. I remember seeing my mom and Scott and Veda and Jean, and kind of, you know, hanging out with them for a little bit as I was kind of drifting in and out. And then, you know, everything was good. And they decided, Scott and Veda and Jean left, and it was just my mom and I. And the night nurse came in at about, I don't know, 6:30 or something. And she decided, it's time for you to get up. And like, all right. So got up, got in a chair, and I sat in a chair from like 7 o'clock until like 11 o'clock at night, which in hindsight, you know, I'm thinking, I don't even think you're supposed to be on an airplane for that long with your legs hanging down, you know, especially right after surgery. So I thought that was kind of strange, but I wasn't really with it enough to ask or to do anything. I just was like, okay, if they left me here, I guess it's okay. She also was pushing me to drink fluids and get my bowels moving because there were like no sounds coming out of my stomach at all. So she was worried about my bowels waking up. So I was drinking a lot of water and then throwing it up. And if you've just had major abdominal surgery, that is no fun. So she said, okay, let's switch to chicken broth, because if you drink this chicken broth, it's warm, it'll help move your bowels along, and you know, that'll help. So she gave me the saltiest chicken broth I've ever had in my life, and I threw that up too. And I was getting like anti-nausea medication through the IV, but it wasn't time for it again, but I was still really nauseous and throwing up, and that was kind of a nightmare. The anesthesia wearing off was really a wild experience. It was like emotional, and I don't know, it's really hard to describe that feeling of it wearing off, because I could kind of feel it like slowly coming out of my system, and then all of a sudden, you know, about 11 o'clock at night, like it was just all of a sudden gone, and I felt every sensation in my body, every nerve in my body, and, you know, inside, outside, everything felt like something, and it was crazy. Plus I was still throwing up, and I still had a catheter in too. So anyhow, so that night I did not sleep at all. I was like wide awake for the entire night, and I kept thinking, you know, at some point I've got to sleep, but I didn't, and I was awake all night long. Gosh, the next day I was awake all day. I got a different nurse. She was a little more generous with pain medication, so I was able to get up and move around a little bit more, and I started to be able to keep fluids down. So she started me on ginger ale, and I was able to keep that down, and but still no belly sounds at all. And that was the scariest part, because I'm like, okay, eventually my bowels have to wake up and move. But I did get to talk to the resident that was in the surgery with me. She was amazing, and she explained that with the extensive surgery that I had, that it will probably take longer for things to wake up and move around, and not to be alarmed with it, and it was okay. So anyway, when I started to be able to keep liquids down, they put me on a full liquid diet, which consists of things like pudding and oatmeal and things like that. And once you're able to keep that down, then they start letting you eat real food, and then they start seeing if you can keep that down or not. But they don't want to give you too much unless your bowels are moving, because that can cause a whole host of other problems. So I graduated through all the different types of foods, but still had no bowel stuff going on. By that night, I was finally feeling like I could rest. I brought my own medication with me that I typically take to sleep. The first night I couldn't get it. I mean, I was told everything would be ordered and I wouldn't have to bring anything. And the first night, like, nothing was ordered and I couldn't get anything. And I typically do take like a handful of medication to sleep. So I had nothing that first night. And the second night I was like, oh my gosh, I've had it with me the whole time. It's been in my purse. So the second night, busted it out and took what I normally take to go to sleep, got settled down in bed, went right to sleep. I woke up at some time in the middle of the night and like my stomach was growling, and I was like, okay, this is a really good sign. So things are waking up, and that's great. And it was, and the nurse came in and she listened and her eyes lit up and she was like, oh, it growled at me. That's awesome. And so they started me on regular food. And now the big deal was like passing gas. Like, she kept checking to see if I passed gas or not. And I wasn't. So that was the next big thing. And then I ended up going home. Actually, no, I did pass gas, like real quickly, just one little, toot, and everybody was really happy. And then I got all prepared to go home. Going home was fine. Not a lot of pain, just some discomfort. And the worst part was that I had to go home with a catheter Foley catheter because they had cut my bladder during surgery. It was a surgical injury, and it's something that can happen. Nothing anybody did wrong, but so they did cut it, and they had to put some stitches in it, and I had to go home with a Foley catheter. So carrying my urine around with me, that was awful. I'm not gonna lie, it was really awful. And it was uncomfortable as well. So I think any of the sensations that I may have felt about, you know, surgery, inside, outside, abdominal stuff, was really kind of overshadowed by the fact that I had this catheter, and I could feel it, and, you know, it was bothering me. And it was kind of like, you know, if you hurt your foot and somebody's like, oh, you know, stamp on your other foot and then you'll forget about the pain in your other one. It was kind of like that. It was like all I could focus on was the catheter, and I couldn't really focus on whether or not I was having discomfort or pain anywhere else. So the catheter was supposed to come out on Friday. So I had the surgery on Friday. It was supposed to come out the next Friday. I got my appointment, though, scheduled for Thursday. So a day early, which was like winning the lottery. It was amazing. So I had to go to back to the hospital where I had the surgery a week before. I had to have, I can't remember what it's called, some kind of scan on my bladder where they put some kind of, it's not really dye because it was clear, I saw it, into your bladder. But then on the scan, you can see it. It looks dark. And so we laid there, or I laid there, and the tech and I watched my bladder on the screen and watched it fill up with this liquid. And we were waiting and waiting and waiting to see if there were going to be any leaks or anything, and there weren't any leaks. And that was exciting. So I went from there directly to my surgeon's office, and she was very ecstatic that there were no leaks, and she ordered the catheter removed, and it was removed, and all was well. Not really. It's still, that's not comfortable, and it's still not super comfortable, the whole catheter after effects, but I can move around so much better now. I feel free that I can like do things and move around and wear normal clothes and leave the house, because I wasn't about to leave the house wearing a catheter unless I had to. Anyway, that was the big thing for week 1. I'm going into week 2 now, and feeling really good. I feel like I look better. I feel like just in general, I feel better. And I think when I do the next video and kind of explain some of the stuff that they found and some of the stuff that they dealt with during the surgery, it'll make a lot of sense why I feel so much different now. Thanks. Bye.